As the country continues to battle against gender-based violence, Free State Premier that Sisi Ntombela said 6 more women have been killed in the province this week alone. And this weekend, boxing champion Baby Jegels and little Thandi Mampane were laid to rest. Mpiwa Mangwiro Tsanga is the regional campaign and advocacy specialist at Sonke Gender Justice. She chats to us now via Skype. Good afternoon, Mpiwa, and thank you so much for your time on the SABC News Desk.
Afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Mpiwa, I just want to garner your reaction now to former tennis coach and convicted rapist Bob Hewitt on his being granted parole at this stage. He was convicted, you'll remember, for the rape of 2 young women and sexually assaulting another whom he coached back in the 1980s and 90s. What do you think this message sends? What message do you think this sends to South Africans in this kind of climate we find ourselves right now, where we're trying our hardest to combat gender-based violence?
I think it is, quite frankly, it is unfortunate that this has happened at this point, because we are at a stage where we are trying to implore the state to take stern measures against perpetrators of gender-based violence and to communicate a message that gender-based violence will not be tolerated. So for him to get parole at a stage like this almost sends the message that this is not as serious as it is. More so when you consider that the president recently came out in a speech saying he will go back to parliament to address the issue of offenders of gender-based and sexual violence being given parole. So for him to get a parole at this point, when the communication and the language should be that such offenses, perpetrators of such offenses should not get parole, is quite unfortunate. And certainly it is a cause for concern, and more so within the developments or within the context of the developments of the past couple of weeks.
Mpiwa, the body count continues to spiral in the Free State province. We've had 6 more women killed this week. Where are we going wrong at this stage? Is it just about addressing patriarchal attitudes, a history of violence, or is it also about more robust campaigning and advocacy at this point?
I think it is a combination of all the things that you have mentioned, because we're at a stage where we need immediate interventions to try and control the body count. But at the same time, we need long-term interventions that are actually going to deal with the underlying root causes of this. And like you have rightly said, patriarchy and toxic masculinities are at the root cause of some of these violent deaths and violent offenses that are being perpetrated against women. We see the culture of violence that has been entrenched in society and normalized and has become normalized is also another major challenge that we are facing as a country, which is ultimately contributing to the escalating levels of gender-based violence that we're experiencing. Also, the issues of the inequality in the country, issues like economic inequality, poverty, which also places women at a disadvantaged position and in many instances forces them to remain in abusive environments because they are dependent on their abusers, who are either an intimate partner or they are also in a position of guardianship or providing. So we need to start addressing this at a root cause level, to start coming up with mechanisms to transform this. But at the same time, we need sterner measures like law enforcement to really take a stand and send a message that will say that those who perpetrate such crimes will be brought to book. Because the challenge we have right now is there's a culture of impunity. There are many rapists and murderers who have committed femicide, who have raped and abused women, who are walking in our streets, and they are becoming repeat offenders, and they are perpetually committing these crimes because they know that they will get away with it. So we need a multiplicity of those interventions at different levels, and certainly advocacy is needed, that the state needs to play its part. And it is time that this conversation is not only brought to the fore when there is a rise in the body count or when there is media alert on the rise of the body count, because the body count is rising every day. Whether there is media attention on it or not, women are still dying. But we need this conversation to go on every day. Every day of our lives, there has to be a conversation on gender-based violence. There has to be a conversation on what needs to be done in schools, in the streets, in households, everywhere. We need to be speaking about these issues.
Mpiwa, on the note of law enforcement that you mentioned just now, I want to hear how women and children actually experience the child protection system and, of course, the SAPS, because often we have women who find the courage to come forward and say that she's and report the crime, but then at the police station we have complaints of her being bullied and even sent away. The case of Dr. Thandi Ndlovu, the much-loved doctor, the late Thandi Ndlovu, keeps reverberating in my mind. And it really is the police who are on the social front line, isn't it? And they are that vital link between the victim who has the courage to report a crime and provision of services.
Yes, true. Police are actually a vital link, and as I keep saying, they're a vital link in the social services, and they're a vital link in finding justice through our criminal justice system. But the unfortunate reality we have is that many women have experienced secondary victimization at the hands of the police, and many women have not found much joy when they are reporting cases. When they report domestic violence cases, they are many times told to go home and resolve it with a partner. I'm actually reminded of one case that we once had, and in this case, a woman had reported that if her former boyfriend had attacked her to the point of leaving her. When he left her, he thought she was dead because he had attacked her, stabbed her several times, and left her for dead. When that case went to court, the magistrate in that case then said to the prosecutor, this is a domestic violence case. Can it be stepped down to allow the parties to resolve the issue? And I remember asking and saying, what's there to resolve about attempted murder? What's there to negotiate about someone who's almost killed you? How does the conversation play out? Is it, Mr. Ex-boyfriend, please in future don't try and kill me? It's not funny. I couldn't really understand what that meant. But that's unfortunate. It's not the attitude that we find in the courts only. That is also found right at the police station, where women will be told to go and resolve issues with their partners when someone has almost been killed, where women are subjected to secondary victimization when they are interrogated and questioned in a manner that communicates that they are not being believed in their stories, when women are not even being given the privacy that they need to report such cases and the space where they can be able to be contained should they go through a difficult patch, emotional patches, they are reporting cases, and also the assistance that they need, because when a woman reports a domestic violence case where they need shelter, the police are supposed to take them to a place of safety. But you find that many women are not given such services. And if anything, they are subjected, in addition to the secondary victimization they go through when they report cases, then in some instances there's issues of dockets that disappear and their cases end up nowhere, and the perpetrators threaten them and tell them that I'm going to come back and kill you for having reported this case. So really it is the women. Some of the reasons why many a woman in South Africa are not willing to come forward and report their cases is because of that lack of confidence in the criminal justice system and the fear of the abuse and the victimization that they are subjected to when they report their cases again.
Mpiwa, we heard the police minister last week say that he wants to deploy more female officers on the front desks of police stations, all right, to deal with cases of this nature. But wouldn't it be a more viable option to actually also bring in the male officers, sensitize them and equip them better to handle cases of this nature? Because it's not a battle we're going to win without the buy-in of men in society at large.
Yes, certainly. There's need for, while it is crucial that they bring in more female officers for particularly is to enable to create that environment where survivors and victims of gender-based violence can be able to report their cases with a somewhat sense of ease when they find women, as to them reporting to males who may resemble the perpetrator that they are coming to report at the police station. So it is actually crucial that we have more female officers that are deployed where women can be able to report their cases. Like you also said, it is important to sensitize male police officers, because it's not always going to be a given that a woman will be able to report to a female officer, although that is the ideal. But then in cases where that cannot be, then male officers need to also be sensitized on how to handle victims of gender-based violence, on how to handle their cases, the sensitivity that is needed, and also for them to, because the challenge that we sometimes is some of the police officers are themselves abusers at home or abusive at home. So for them to come and bring another man to account who is committing similar crimes as they do is a very difficult thing. So that sensitization is also for them to also be sensitized against gender-based violence in itself, then also be sensitized on the need to address and handle such cases with the sensitivity that they deserve, and avail the support and the resources that are needed to victims and survivors of gender-based violence.
Mpiwa Mangwiro Tsanga is the Regional Campaign and Advocacy Specialist at Sonke Gender Justice, joining us via